are these people?
So this is probably the top story this week, at least so far.
Yeah.
I'm sure I know other people in the space have talked about Mahmoud Khalil. Basically, we know him as the Palestinian. He's Syrian, but he's an activist at Columbia. He went to Columbia. I believe he got his grad degree at Columbia, but has been engaging the campus with protests over what's happening in Gaza last spring. And basically, he was targeted. And now we have some information as to why that might be the case a little bit more, which kind of makes this a little, I'll say, weird. But looking at the title, I put in parentheses in the S. There's a reason why I did that. But let's get into I'll move first, and we'll go into a little bit more. This is from ScheerPost / Electronic Intifada. This is brought by Ali
Abunimah.
Abunimah, where he writes, Colombia complicit in Trump arrest of student leader Mahmoud Khalil, where he writes, oh, this is going to be bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Here.
Really small.
That's probably best.
As of Monday morning, Mahmoud Khalil was being detained at a federal immigration facility in Louisiana. That's where he is currently.
Okay.
The recent Columbia graduate was inside his university-owned apartment on Saturday night in New York City when ICE agents entered and detained him, his attorney Amy Greer told the Associated Press. As he languishes in his cell far from his home and family, fellow students are denouncing Colombia's silence and apparent complicity in his arrest. On Sunday, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security confirmed Khalil's arrest, claiming it was for, quote, activities aligned to Hamas. Khalil's detention is the latest escalation in the Trump administration's crackdown on supporters on Palestinian rights under the pretext of fighting anti-Semitism and supporting terrorism. Well known and respected on campus, Khalil led negotiations between university officials and students during last year's campus encampment protesting the Israeli genocide in Palestine amid the ongoing crackdown. An Algerian citizen of Palestinian origin, an illegal... Oh, I missed that. I thought it was Syrian. Okay. An illegal permanent resident of the United States, otherwise known as green card status. Khalil's green card is supposed to afford him all the constitutional free speech protections enjoyed by U.S. citizens.
I've heard some differences on that between different groups reporting on it. So it's not just you that thinks things are different. I think he is Syrian. So
yeah. Okay. But regardless, according to Gear, the ICE agents also threatened to arrest Khalil's wife, a U.S. citizen who is 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Gear said that she spoke by phone with one of the ICE agents during the arrest, who said they were acting on State Department's orders to revoke Khalil's student visa. Again, it's not a student visa. The Associated Press reported. Informed by the attorney that Khalil was in the United States as a permanent resident with a green card, the agent said they were revoking that instead, according to the lawyer. So they didn't even know what documentation he had. So this is from Marco Rubio, who is our current Secretary of State, who tweeted, "We will be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so that they can be deported." Okay, sir. Thank you. While green card holders like Khalil can lose their residency under certain conditions, their status cannot be arbitrarily canceled by the government. Permanent residency can only be revoked by an immigration judge based on specific criteria set out in the law following due process that appears to be absent in Khalil's case. That didn't happen. So we'll see what happens with that within the next few days or weeks. But yeah, that's essentially an immigration judge has to, and I know this given that I was on a green card status for, I think, close to 20 years, that an immigration judge has to essentially revoke that status. And even then, it's like an extreme circumstance. So, the idea of free speech doesn't necessarily apply in this case, although some might argue that it does. But, but anyway, we'll continue. During the arrest, one of the agents showed Khalil what he claimed was a warrant on his phone. This is so sloppy. It's so ridiculous. According to a press release from the solidarity group Writers Against the War on Gaza. Khalil's wife then went to retrieve his green card while the agents waited for Khalil. When she returned, advising them of Khalil's legal status and presenting them with Khalil's green card, one agent was visibly confused and said on the phone, "He has a green card," according to the press release. Khalil's wife then called a lawyer who spoke to the agents, but when the lawyer requested a copy of the warrant, the agent reportedly hung up. Greer has filed a habeas corpus petition, an emergency legal challenge to the validity of Khalil's detention. The attorney told the Washington Post that Khalil's arrest follows the U.S. government's open repression of student activism and political speech, specifically targeting students at Columbia University for criticism of Israel's assault on Gaza. Federal agents also attempted to detain another international student at Columbia over the weekend. According to the Student Workers of Columbia, a graduate student union representing the woman, 3 ICE agents visited her university-owned residence Friday night and attempted to enter without a warrant, which, as you said, they cannot do. You reported on that a week or two ago. So check out, I believe, what segment was that? That was I
don't remember.
I forgot. Yeah, but you did report on this. So basically, like, if ICE comes to you, you do not answer anything they ask you other than
yeah. You just shut up. Shut the fuck up.
Shut up and say, "I want my lawyer." You can't talk to me without a lawyer. You have a right to say that, and they cannot. If you're at your home and they try to enter, they should. Well, just like with the police, cannot enter without a permit. I mean, a warrant. So if they don't have a warrant,
this is a private domicile.
Right.
Shout out Jesse Pinkman, I guess.
Right. By Monday morning, an online petition demanding Khalil's release had attracted more than 1 million signatures. Palestinian community and solidarity groups called for an emergency rally outside the federal building in New York City. So we see that tweet from the People's Forum here, where they were asking for a rally on Monday afternoon at the Javits Federal Building. Let's continue.
Here. Yeah.
Thank you. The American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, can't read that word on this. Condemned Khalil's arrest as an extreme and blatant act of political retaliation for his First Amendment protected advocacy. FIRE, a legal advocacy group that defends free speech on campuses, warned that just as students and other demonstrators are obliged to abide by lawful rules of conduct, our government must abide by the First Amendment. So here's their tweet here. FIRE is monitoring reports about Mahmoud Khalil's arrest and detention and seeking to learn more. Anyone facing arrest and detention must be afforded due process. Just as students and other demonstrators are obliged to abide by lawful rules of conduct, our government must abide by the First Amendment. The government must be clear and transparent about the basis for its actions to avoid chilling protected speech.
Yeah.
So, and they link the AP article. Democratic Party Congress members Jamil Jayapal and Rashida Tlaib and New York City mayoral candidate Zoran Mandani also denounced Khalil's arrest as attack on free speech and fundamental rights.
Mhm.
So John Paul tweeted, the Trump administration is going after students who have used their First Amendment constitutional rights. This is unacceptable. Deporting legal residents solely for expressing their political opinions is a violation of free speech rights. Who's next? Citizens. And then Talib said, free Mahmoud Khalil. This is straight out of the fascist playbook. Criminalizing dissent is an assault on our First Amendment and freedom of speech. Revoking someone's green card for expressing their political opinion is illegal. Protesting genocide is not a crime. So I'll get more into them specifically with another squad member in a second. But while alarm is growing at this government's censorship and repression, there's also considerable anger at the silence and apparent complicity of Columbia University, which has been raging a severe crackdown on supporters of Palestinian rights in an attempt to appease pro-Israel donors and politicians. That effort has been totally futile, as the Trump administration last week canceled $400 million in grants to Columbia in retaliation for the university's failure to sufficiently repress protests against Israel's genocide. Despite the brutality of his detention and the looming threat to his life and liberty, Columbia University, an institution that prides itself on academic freedom and the pursuit of justice, has remained disturbingly silent, the Columbia Palestine Solidarity Coalition said on Monday. This silence is not merely a failure to defend one of its own, but an endorsement of an unjust, anti-Palestinian, and politically motivated detention. The university did not answer a reporter's questions about whether it had advanced knowledge of ICE activities around campus or of Khalil's arrest, instead directing the reporter to a general statement. I think you have more to speak on that.
Yeah, a bit.
So there's an update from Prem Thakur, who said, asked Columbia specifically if they knew in advance of any DHS or ICE activity on your campus, on whether they shared info with authorities about the detained individual or any other Columbia affiliates. They did not answer those questions, instead referring to the statement. There have been reports of ICE around campus. Columbia has and will continue to follow the law consistent with our longstanding practice and the practice of cities and institutions throughout the country. Law enforcement must have a judicial warrant to enter non-public university areas, which you did not have, including university buildings, which you did not have. Columbia is committed to complying with all legal obligations and supporting our student body and campus community.
Mainly the Israeli portion of it, but yes.
But according to the Columbia Spectator, a campus newspaper, students noticed ICE activity around campus on Saturday. Three campus housing security officers confirmed to Spectator that they received notice of ICE presence surrounding campus from supervisors on Saturday. The publication reported an indication that officials may well have had advance notice. Columbia University has published guidance on how to best to collaborate with federal enforcement, including advising faculty and staff not to interfere with ICE agents, even if those agents are unable to present a warrant, according to the Writers Against the War on Gaza. The university's policies confirms that exigent circumstances may allow for access to university buildings or people without a warrant. This contrasts with peer institutions such as New York University, whose own guidelines state that should law enforcement officials wish to enter NYU facilities for immigration-related enforcement purposes, they must have a judicial warrant or subpoena in order to do so, which I'm pretty sure they have at Columbia too. But Columbia's continued acquiescence to federal agencies and outside partisan institutions have made this situation possible. Rise Against the War on Gaza said, a Palestinian student, a member of the community, has been abducted and detained without the physical demonstration of a warrant or officially filed charges. Like many other Arab and Muslim students, Khalil has been the target of various Zionist harassment campaigns fueled by doxing websites like Canary Mission, the group added. Khalil is also among several students under investigation by the university itself as part of its ongoing repression of speech in support of Palestinian rights. I have around 13 allegations against me. Most of them are social media posts that I have nothing to do with, Khalil told the AP last week. They just want to show Congress and right-wing politicians that they're doing something, regardless of the stakes for students, Khalil added. So, case in point, this is from
the Anti-Defecation League.
Yep. We firmly believe there should be swift and severe consequences for those who provide material support to foreign terrorist organizations, incite violence in support of terrorist activities, or conceal their identities in order to harass and intimidate Jewish individuals and institutions with impunity. We appreciate the Trump administration's broad, bold set of efforts to counter campus anti-Semitism, and this action further illustrates that resolve by holding alleged perpetrators responsible for their actions. Obviously, any deportation action or revocation of a green card or visa must be undertaken with alignment with required due process protections. Again, that didn't happen. We also hope that this action serves as a deterrent to other. Well, they're basically giving away the game. Sort of. We also hope that this action serves as a deterrent to others who might consider breaking the law on college campuses or anywhere, or basically criticizing Israel is what they're really trying to say.
Yeah. I find it funny that they talk about harassment and like, you know, when they've been it's always fucking every accusation is a confession from them. So
right. So let's play this clip because this made the rounds online because people were using this clip as proof, quote unquote, that Khalil is pro Hamas and all the things. So
roll the bean.
Why do y'all see? Right.
Are you guys going to listen to the university and leave the encampment here?
Of course not. The university is the one who should listen to us. They should listen to their student body who are demanding to end their investment in the war that's happening in Palestine. Our demands are clear. Our demands are regarding divestment from the Israeli occupation, the companies that are profiting and contributing to the genocide of our people. Again, the university, once again, they are so stubborn in listening to their students. They're treating this matter as a disciplinary matter. They're not treating this as an anti-war movement that actually gathered thousands of students here. That actually sparked thousands of students across the United States.
How far are you all willing to go here on campus?
We're going to go as far as we need to pressure the university to pressure the university to divest from the occupation. This is up to the group, to the leadership of the group, to decide how far they will go. But now it's clear that the students will remain here. They will stay here until they achieve their demands.
Doesn't sound like pro Hamas talk to me.
No, it sounds like
that sounds more like divestment.
Yeah, that's about it.
Which we've reported since last spring that's what college campuses were asking for from their colleges is divestment from organizations or corporations that fund Israel. So now, to be fair, that's just one thing. But given what we reported from last year, assuming that the messaging was the same, this is basically what college campuses have been pushing for. But this, even in saying that, is somewhat convoluted as being pro-Hamas and a reason for people to attack these protesters. But regardless, let's continue.
You want to talk
I was born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp in southern Damascus in Syria. My family's history in Palestine actually goes back to as long as my parent could trace it. They lived in a very small village, born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp in southern Damascus in Syria. My family's history in Palestine actually goes back to as long as my grandparent could trace it. They lived in a very small village right next to Tiberias. Mostly they were farmers. My grandmother, she used to tell us that she had Jewish neighbors. They would share a piece of land where they would farm it. Tiberias was one of the first cities that the Zionists targeted in 1948 with ethnic cleansing. In April 1948, a month before the Nakba, the Zionist militias, they burned one of their villages. When they heard the news about it, they had to leave immediately. Some of the men went to fight. Big families, they had to go to Syria. My grandmother, she was pregnant at that time. She had to walk 40 miles. She gave birth on the way. When they arrived in the refugee camp, they thought it's just a matter of days until they would go back. They did not want to be killed because they heard about the horror stories across Tiberias. My dad was born in a tent. His family lived in that tent until like mid-70s when they upgraded to small structures. In the 90s, they finally kind of like had concrete buildings. To us, it was always a temporary home until we go back to Palestine.
So that's where he's come from, right?
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, I already fixed it. It was because I fat fingered the button that turned our mics off. So
Okay.
So,
but this looks like a part of a documentary that's being produced, which makes this a little muddy to me. Like, granted, I'm sure what's happening to him is true, but this could even mean, is this the reason why he was targeted? Or, and again, I hate doing this, but just my spider senses are tingling.
I was born.
Is this, I don't want to say it's just more nefarious, but that just something doesn't seem right, and especially given that Macklemore is a part of this. So,
well, and Susan Sarandon shows up at the thing, and we'll get into it more in our next segment. I brought a bit that might be party pooping on this, but not to say that his rights aren't being violated. First and foremost, you know, they absolutely unequivocally are. But like there may be more to the story, and before we get all excited on a new hero, we should be a little more cautious.
Right.
But
and especially given it's kind of similar with Luigi and Gioni, like he's getting a lot of press. So
cautious optimism,
whereas a lot of protesters have not been getting this much press, other than maybe if you hear about it from us in independent media, and even that's kind of slim picking. So the fact that like Luigi, he's getting all this attention.
I mean, Rashida Tlaib and Jayapal, and they're all voicing their opinions on it. Definitely starts making me a little suspect. But yeah, we'll see. I've not worked out everything yet. I think I've got something. We'll talk about it in a bit. But yeah, more of this article, right?
Right. There have been calls for Columbia students and faculty to cancel classes in protest at the university's complicity in Khalid's arrest and the Trump administration's anti-Palestinian crackdown. In an apparent attempt to head off such solidarity actions, administrators sent out an email on Monday morning asserting that classes and exams will continue as usual, in person, and warning, this is also a reminder that faculty must meet all scheduled classes. So
yeah, get to fucking work. Yeah.
Right.
Go back to work. Nothing to see here.
Okay, whatever. So this one was from
Ayanna Presley weighing in.
Right. So she tweeted, a president who detains a protester and revokes their legal status can only be called one thing, a dictator. Silencing dissent is unlawful, unjust, and authoritarian through and through. So,
but I distinctly remember a Mr. Joseph R. Iscariot, also signaling this was going to be the way he dealt with this. So,
right.
In case people were wondering. Back one.
Wait. Yeah.
There you go.
So I tweeted because I happened to find, so now bringing in our title of this segment, why did you put an S in activists? Well, apparently over the weekend, and even in this article, there was another one that didn't get reported. Yeah. But I found another issue similar that happened in Australia over the weekend on a similar thing. So we'll get into that in a minute. So I tweeted out to Ayanna, the thing is, another case has been reported of a similar situation in Australia. So it's not just the Trump administration deporting visa holders for protesting against our foreign policy in Israel. But Ayanna Presley will not call the Australian government dictators. So interesting that it's easy to call Trump a dictator, but you're not going to call our allies who are doing the same thing dictators either, Ayanna.
No, or previous administrations who were willing to do the same thing.
Who were willing to do that, like your former boss. So,
so I brought this in regards to this. So this is Univ Fields says breaking: Columbia has issued its first expulsion for alleged involvement in the occupation of Hens Hall. In response, we are releasing never-before-seen footage of the Battle of Hens Hall, which was smuggled out in a militant's bra with a message to the student Intifada. So... So again, like 5 minutes of this kind of shit. So I mean, I think you get the idea, right?
Right.
You know, I've not seen any footage from beyond the barricades, so I'll take it. But they also mention that if I could go to the next slide, please, thank you. So what folks watching this video might not realize is that minutes before NYPD invaded Hens Hall, self-appointed leaders were privately colluding with Eric Adams' mouthpieces and forcing a vote to get us to take down the barricades of our own accord. But militants inside held the line and won out. We resisted. We did not compromise. We defended the barricades. We did not engage in the conversation between the sword and the neck. Collaboration with the enemy on the grounds that they can be reasoned with amounts to treason to our cause. The repression they inflicted on us is not a misunderstanding or a betrayal. It is the most honest they have ever been. So, was Mahmoud not one of those leaders?
Yes.
That's my question. He also, in an earlier clip, talked about mentioning leaders kind of in the third party, right? So he may not have been at that time, but I think here he was. So I don't know if he was one of the people colluding with Eric Adams at that time. But there's definitely some questions. But I think that's it with that. So you brought Alan Macleod.
Right. So I mentioned last weekend.
Yeah.
We're going to go down under. Shout out to Alan Macleod for reporting on this. And this is what I was referring to with Ayanna calling Trump a dictator. Again, this is happening in Australia too, where Alan reported Australia revokes visa of pro-Muslim scholar under pro-Israel pressure. So he writes, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to read. I'm going to read from my screen down below. Okay. So following a pressure campaign from pro-Israel forces, Australia has revoked the visa of Hussein Mak. I guess how you say it.
Yeah.
Apologize if I butcher your name. The British-born Muslim scholar and motivational speaker had been scheduled to carry out a speaking tour across the country. But pressure from Sky News Australia and local pro-Israel politicians who highlighted his pro-resistance stances and his attendance at the funeral of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah convinced the government to act. Australia, which shares a similar settler colonial past to Israel, is one of Tel Aviv's strongest international supporters and has officially designated Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. It was this angle that Sky News Australia host Shari Markson used to lead the charge against Mark's entry into the country. In a live TV segment, Markson accused him of spreading dangerous views and defending terrorism. So, Shadow, you don't need to zoom in for that.
You're good.
You got
it?
Hold on. Yeah. Shadow Home Affairs Minister James Paterson echoed Markson's argument, telling Sky News that no one who praises a deceased terrorist, let alone attends a funeral organized by a listed terrorist organization, should be welcome in Australia. Using American-supplied bunker buster bombs, Israel assassinated Nasrallah in Beirut in September. The attack drew widespread outrage and outpouring of grief in Lebanon. An estimated 70,000 to 900,000 people participated in his funeral procession in February, nearly 1/6 of the country's population. Mak, who resides in Lebanon, was among those attending. In a post on Twitter, he described himself as a victim of a smear campaign organized by Sky News. So, actually have that tweet from him. There we go. So if you zoom in for this. So he tweeted, Sky News ran a smear campaign against me today to get me banned from Australia. Zionist accounts are currently tweeting MP Tony Burke under this tweet to pressure him into rescinding my visa. If you would like defend this attack on free speech and oppressive censorship, especially if you're one of his constituents in Sydney, then let him know you won't stand for Sky News to make laws on who enters the country, especially based on such a fallacious and poor excuse for journalism. I will respond, to their report soon. So this is the journalist here
Mm-hmm.
who's standing next to
Benjamin Netanyahu.
the demon himself. So we'll get more into her in a second. In addition to being a journalist and television presenter, Markson is an open and vocal supporter of Israel and its attacks on its neighbors. In October 2023, she flew to Jerusalem to interview an Israeli Defense Forces commander who was participating in the bloodshed, calling him a hero and someone full of bravery and courage. The pinned post on her official Instagram account shows her standing shoulder to shoulder with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The caption described it as one of the highlights of her career to meet him and hear how he is fighting to ensure Israel's survival in the face of terror and the hostile international community. Sky News Australia's unrelenting support of Israel and its war on Gaza is predictable, given that the network is part of Rupert Murdoch's massive media empire, which you reported on a couple months ago. Yep. Murdoch is a close friend and ally of Netanyahu. Indeed, a leaked red-hidden list compiled by Netanyahu himself highlighted the Australian billionaire as one of his best sources of campaign contributions. Last year, Murdoch's son, Lachlan, who runs much of the News Corp empire's day-to-day business, flew to Israel for secret talks with Netanyahu and former Prime Minister Benny Gantz. While the details of the meetings remain murky, it is clear that they discuss how the media could better support Israel's offensive in Gaza and beyond. So to end this, this is a tweet from Richard Medhurst, which he has since deleted. But we had it. But he tweeted, like Khalil, Austria threatened to revoke my permanent residency. This is despite me being an accredited journalist, having zero criminal record, and being from a UN/diplomatic family. The point is to scare everyone into submission. It's intentionally coordinated state terrorism. So probably this is going to be a developing story over the next few weeks, especially given what we just obtained from Breakthrough News regarding his upcoming documentary, which kind of brings, I will admit, some suspicions as to why he was targeted, or especially more so, he's been highly propped up in the media, probably, again, to make an example of him in terms of his activism. But you do have to wonder, given this documentary that he is producing, especially with Macklemore being behind it, if there's a lot more to this that we don't necessarily know yet. So, like I said, we'll keep you all updated, but any last thoughts?
I mean, I'll get more into it in our next segment, but I definitely, my spidey senses are definitely tingling on this story for sure, especially with the amount of press it's getting. But you know, we'll look into it and see where the issues are, if there are any. But clearly, these are they're trying to put his head on a spike, essentially, for the rest of you.
Right.
So that is still an issue, and it's why we wanted to talk about it. So if I know a lot of our audience is young and probably going to school, and you might have even been in some of these protests. Just be extra careful and make sure you know your rights, and just be careful out there. So but this is why we're demonetized. So you can scan that QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork, or as always, links to donate are in the description below. We appreciate all the monetary support that allows us to continue giving you these stories. And if you can't give monetarily, it's very simple. Like and subscribe and share the video. YouTube completely suppresses us. It's the only way for other people to see our stuff is for you to send it to them. So please do so, and make sure you leave a comment. Allegedly, that helps the algorithm. So otherwise, thanks for watching.